Yeah, I was trying jQuery yesterday and I've never studied it before, so I have a very basic question.
Okay.
Um, I was trying to make the program, the first HTML program, I was trying to write that using jQuery.
Okay.
Uh, and so in this program, basically when I'm trying to validate the first name and the last name, I was
Mm-hmm.
using the jQuery functions for that. So what I found out that since I was doing it based on ID, since I was not passing any value,
Mm-hmm.
I was rewriting the code. The code was not being used again and again. So, okay, so now I'm seeing that you have done something with the value. So, like, how are we supposed to use jQuery and reuse the function?
No, function. So here, right? Yeah, you are passing right. You are instead of calling validate first name. Suppose now I have written a function called validate first name. But normally we don't write function style validate first name. So what we
Hmm.
do is we write functions like check for empty, right? This is what we check actually. Check for empty. Start with alphabets. It is starting with alphabets. And what else? You can write whatever you want to do. Okay, is special character present. So this way you can add as many functions as you want. Now what you need to do here is in the document.ready. Now you what you want to do? You want to bind events, right?
Right. Like
Here,
the on blur event.
yeah. So you want to bind event on what? Hash
On,
uh, first name.
yes.
You can bind event, or you can just say yeah on blur of this. You want to check what you want to do. Validate. What is the, oh, you have written a function for check for empty, right?
Hmm.
Now your check for empty will going to take now couple of arguments. The first argument is the second argument. The second argument is value. The first argument is the ID.
Hmm.
That's it. Now this is reusable, right?
Right.
Done. So you need to get the value and pass it actually. So here you are not passing the value, no?
Right.
Where was that? You're calling the function check for empty. So what you need to do is it's up to you. You can get the value here, or
Hmm.
instead of getting the value here, you can also pass from here ID and don't pass any value. Just pass ID here. Now how can you obtain the value? Because you know the ID,
Hmm.
you can get the value like this here. done. Now it's reusable, right? So you have a function. You are calling that function on blur of the first name. Similarly, now these things you cannot do. This cannot be reusable.
Right.
You have to do it. There is no other option.
Okay.
Right?
And when you sent us the emails with these programs, I didn't find the jQuery part of it, so I was not able to study back from it.
I didn't get you.
When you sent us the first HTML in your last email,
Okay.
you had sent us all the programs that you showed us. So in those emails, I didn't find the jQuery part. It was just the basic HTML.
Let me check here. So this was your first day where I added two attachments, HTML and the CSS, no JavaScript here.
Right.
Then there was another one. You have HTML, you have HTML, you have a HTML. JavaScript was as a part of this only, right? Within this document, you will see the JavaScript also.
I don't remember right now, but when I try to view the source, yeah.
No. Okay. Probably it's not showing you the script tag here.
Right. And so
But when you download, but because this is what I have sent it. Don't look at it. Download it and open it with a notepad.
Okay.
I'm sure you will be able to see that. Let me do this. You are able to see the JavaScript. Probably view source will not give you the JavaScript.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And see, when it comes to reusability of the things, it comes with practice. The more examples you keep solving, then you will be, of course, get familiar with how to. You will be understanding the concepts of jQuery. Then you can think of reusing the piece of code which is already written.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Alright. Yeah, guys, any other questions, others? Alright. So what I would like to do today. So far what I did was client-side programming. So why I am calling it as client-side programming, what we did for the last 3 classes. Because actually these programs what we written so far, you can run them with the help of the browser. The HTML, you can run it with the help of the browser. CSS with the help of the browser. JavaScript with the help of the browser. jQuery with the help of the browser. So what we did for the past 3 days, we did something like, the client-side programming. But is a server-side program involved? No. But why did we use server while creating the project? Right. So while creating this project, why did I use server? Why did I use server? So I said, to run the programs, you need a browser. But if you want these programs to be accessed globally, that need to be hosted on the server. Now we got these HTML files and JavaScript files. Now if I try to access it with the help of internet, will I be able to access them? No, they are on the server on my machine. So instead of the server on my machine, I will own a domain on the server. Like you might be familiar with GoDaddy. So they sell websites. I mean they sell websites because they sell domains. So I need to purchase one of the domain. then I need to put all these code into the domain. Then what? People across the globe will be able to access if I allow them to access it. Right. So this HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it's accessed globally. It's HTML, CSS, JavaScript can be accessed globally only when you post these pages on the server. Only when you post the pages on the server. Right. But I'm hosting these pages on the server. But are they getting executed on the server? No. They are not getting executed on the server. They are only getting executed on the client browser. The HTML gets executed on the client browser. CSS gets executed on the client browser. JavaScript gets executed on the client browser. So everything, the jQuery also gets executed on the client browser. So these all pieces of code get executed on the client browser. They get executed on the client browser. Okay. So what next? Now what I want to do is when I'm submitting the data. When I submit the data, I want the server-side program to read the data. I want the server-side program to read the data and store into the database. I want the server-side program to read the data and store into a database. Now this cannot be done by your client-side programs. Means using JavaScript, I cannot perform a logic which will store the data into the database. Or using jQuery, I cannot perform a logic which can store the data into the database. So in order to store the data into the database which is submitted by the client, one need to have a server-side program. Now let's see what server-side program we're gonna do. So we're gonna learn servlets as your first server-side programming. But before I get on to the servlets, let's see what exactly the server-side programming is. So there is one guy called javateapoint.com. So compared to tutorials point, I find this tutorial better. Here this guy has written for servlets. Okay. We try to read something from here. Now what is servlet? It is used to create web application. It resides at server side and generates dynamic web pages. Now what is your HTML, CSS, JavaScript? They resides on the server, but they get executed on what? Client browser. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, they reside on what? Server, but they get executed on what? Client browser. Whereas servlet is what? It is used to create a web application. They reside on the server and they get executed on the server. So here this is something we need to discuss. Before servlet, we had something called CGI, Common Gateway Interface Scripting Language, was used as a server-side programming language. So before the birth of the servlets, we also developed the web applications with the help of CGI scripting. With the help of CGI scripting, CGI stands for Common Gateway Interface. But there are many disadvantages of this. So let's see what are the disadvantages of CGI scripting. This picture will clearly give you an idea what happens when you develop a server-side program using a CGI script. So what happens is, this is your server. So you got request because if it is a web program, people across the globe can access it. So simultaneously, many people can access it. So what happens is, every time a customer makes a request for a server-side program, that is I said, the HTML, I enter the data into the HTML fields. Then I would like to click on the submit button. Now when I click on the submit button, I want it to talk to a server-side program. That server-side program is developed using CGI script. That server-side program should put the data into the database. So this is what my agenda. So what happens? What happens is every customer makes a request, and all the customers may make a request at a given point of time, or they make a request one after the other. So when many customers, I have a bank, my website got many customers. I have thousands and thousands of customers. So what happens? What is the worst possibility? The worst possibility is many people will keep accessing the website at a given point of time. So there are 3 customers who is making a request to insert the data into the database. So what happens? The server, it is creating three objects. It is creating 3 objects. You see this CGI shell, CGI shell, CGI shell. They are nothing but 3 objects of the CGI program. Now imagine, now there are 3 requests, there are 3 objects. 1000 requests, 1000 objects. Million requests, million objects. Billion requests, billion objects. So what do you think? What do you mean by object? Object is something which occupies some physical memory, right? Object is something which occupies some physical memory. Now, for every customer, it is creating a separate object. For every customer, it is creating a separate object. Imagine I have 1000 customers logged in at the same time. There are 1000 objects. Then 10,000 customers, 10,000 objects. But will your server capable of accommodating 10,000 objects? Because when I buy memory on the server, when I buy a domain, there will be a limited, right? So I need to pay more for more memory. I need to pay more for more memory. So, but how much I pay more to get the more memory? Suppose tomorrow my customers has increased, right, drastically from 1 million to 10 million, right? So I cannot afford that amount of memory on the server, right? So this is the problem with your CGI scripting. So in short, the CGI script happens, what happens is whenever you make a request, the object is created for every request. So if you have 10 customers, you create 10 objects. If you have 100 customers, you can create 100 objects. But you cannot reach beyond it. Suppose you bought the memory only for 1000 objects. So when you have 1000 customers, for every customer there is an object. But if you have tomorrow 10,000 customers, I cannot afford to have 10,000 objects. So what about the remaining 9,000 customers will do? The remaining 9,000 customers will wait for the first 1,000 customers to release the memory. The remaining 1,000 customers will wait for the remaining 9,000 customers will wait for the first 1,000 customers to complete the request. Then what happens? The number of clients increases, it takes more time for sending responses. And for each request, it starts a new process. And web server is limited to start process. That's what I was trying to tell you. You cannot have 1,000 requests and 1,000 processes. You cannot have million requests and million processes getting started. And the worst thing is, they use the platform-dependent language like C and C++. So this is all about CGI script. Then comes what? Your servlet technology. So what happened is, there is one servlet object, and whenever you make a request, it is not creating, for every request it is not creating an object. Rather, for every request a thread will be created. But there will be only one servlet object. And you know, when we create threads what? Threads execute simultaneously, switching between each other. Threads execute simultaneously, switching between each other. So the load on the server is very low because for every request I'm not creating an object. Rather, I'm treating every request as a thread. And those all the threads will access that object. Right? Multi-threading. So threads can access the resource. That's what multi-threading is all about. Multi-threading is what? Several threads can access the same resource at a given point of time. And that too, of course, when I say given point of time, alright, they switch between each other. If thread 1 is accessing, thread 2, thread 3 waits. When thread 2 is accessing, thread 1, thread 3 waits. In this way, the performance has improved. Another thing is, Servlet is a very robust programming language, and Servlet supports multi-threading, and servlets are portable because the Java programming is not platform dependent. This is the advantage of your servlet. Now what we need to learn is, how do I develop a servlet? How do I develop a servlet? Now you understood what is servlet. Servlet is a server-side program which resides on the server, gets executed on the server. For every client request, a new object is not created. For every client request, a new object is not created. Every request is treated as a thread, and all the threads will access the common servlet object. Right? So before we do a program on servlet, let's understand the servlet life cycle. Now, you know how your Java program works. You write a Java program, you compile your Java program, your JVM got a class loader, your JVM got a Java virtual machine, because to run a Java program, what do we need? We need a Java virtual machine, and your Java virtual machine will, with the help of class loader, will load the .class file. After loading the .class file, we create the object. If you want to access instance members, then create the object, invoke the methods. And once your job is done, garbage collector will remove the object. In servlets also, but we are not depending on JVM, we are depending on something called web container. Now, every web server, or it can be application servers. There are two types of servers: web server, application server. Web server also contains web container. Application server also contains web container. We'll discuss more about the web server and application server later. So for time being, I can put my servlet programs either into web server or into application server. Both of them got the web containers, and the web container is the one which is going to maintain the life cycle of a servlet. So what the web container will do? Web container first load the .class file, then servlet object is created. Then after creating the servlet object, init method is called. It is like your constructor. Then service method is called. Now within the service method, you will write all the logics. Within the service method, you write all the logics, whatever the logic you want to perform. Then destroy method is to this destroy method gets executed when object is destroyed. Like it is like your finally block. Your finally block executes always, right? Or it's not. It's actually we use finally block to clean the resources. Similarly, destroy can be used to clean the resources. But when your destroy gets called, when your web container removes the servlet object, when your web container removes the servlet object, then your destroy method is called. So you need to understand here, if I call destroy, servlet is not destroyed. If I call destroy, servlet is not destroyed. If servlet is destroyed, then destroy method is called. Means when object gets destroyed, destroy method gets called. So look at this. What is happening? You load the .class file, create the object, call the init method. So now your servlet is ready. Now your servlet is ready to process the request. Then In order to process the request, I need to call a service method. The service method will process the request, and once it is done, response will be given back to the client. Now, when it gets destroyed, as I said earlier, for every request, it won't create a new object. The object is created only once. I reiterate the point. What is the advantage of servlets? The servlet object is created once, and that servlet object will serve multiple requests. Every request is treated as a thread. Every request is treated as a thread. All the threads will access the same servlet object. Right? So when you make a request for the very first time, I check whether the object exists or not. That is, there are two things. Customer, or you can say client, makes a request. When the client is making a request, there are two cases. What are the two cases? Servlet object exists. The other case is what? Servlet object do not exist. Now what happens when servlet object exists? When your servlet object is existing, the request object is delegated to existing servlet object. Now what happens when servlet object doesn't exist? You got your container load the dot class file. Container load the dot class file. Create object. Container load the dot class file. Then it creates object. Container load the dot class file. It creates object. It calls init method. Then service method is called. Here also same. That is service method is create. Here also the same. There isn't like change in the steps. If the object doesn't exist, you have few more steps. If the object exists, then you call the service method directly. Right. Now you have something called destroy method. Now when the destroy method gets executed, your web container, alright, and what web container does is, it waits, web container waits, can you just give me a minute? I'm back, I'm sorry. Your web container, what it does is, it waits for a certain period, right? And then realizes that no more requests have come from client for a gap of some minutes or seconds. Then what it does is, there is no point in keeping the object because there is no request coming from the client. Web container destroys the object after the specified idle time. After the specified idle time, alright. So once the object is destroyed, destroy method gets invoked. Web container destroys the object after the specified idle time. Once the object is destroyed, the destroy method gets invoked. Now, who is going to specify the idle time? Are we going to specify the idle time? As a servlet developer, do we have the option of specifying the idle time? The answer is no. The people who developed the web container, they might have specified the idle time, or they specified the idle time. So it's not the servlet developer who specified the idle time, the people who developed the web container. So I'm using a Apache Tomcat server. It got a container. So the people who developed the server, they are also responsible for developing the container. Now, the people who developed the container, they specified how long servlet object can be idle. Once it reaches the threshold, then object will go for destruction. The object will be destroyed. Right. I hope you understood the life cycle of the servlet. Let's develop a program. I got a file, new. I'm creating a dynamic web project. Let's say first servlet application. Then I click on the next. You see here, pick up this one, web.xml. Now you have a web content here. Then here I would like to develop a HTML file. I'll say first HTML. I don't want to write the HTML again. I just go to the previous application. Then I get the HTML. Then I have it inside a form body. In the body I have a form, and in the form I have a table. Table got all the elements: first name, last name, username, password, confirm, gender, date of birth, mobile number, alternate email address, and a photo. Now when I click on the submit button, do I have a submit button here? Yeah, I do have. When I click on the submit button, I would like to call a servlet called registered servlet. So I'm trying to call a server-side programming. Now where do we create servlets? Where do we create servlets? You see the Java resources folder here? Now when you expand the Java resources folder, you see SRC. When you expand the Java resources folder, you see SRC. Now within that SRC, I'm going to create a servlet. You see here. You are creating a servlet. Now it is giving me options for package names. I call them as a controller. I'll discuss later why I'm calling them as controller. Or let's not do anything, right? Let's just not to specify any package name. I'll just specify the class name. Now, who is the parent class of this HTTP servlet? You see here, I'm specifying the class name and there is a super class. Now, I would like to change the super class to generic servlet. I will come back to the HTTP servlet later. I'm changing the super class to what? Generic servlet. Alright. Now here you click on the next. Then you need to focus here. What I did, after specifying the class name, changing the parent to generic servlet, you don't need to do that, but I just want to introduce you guys also to the generic servlet. Then I click on the next. Then here we go. What is this name? Servlet. You see URL mappings here? You need to remember this. Your URL mapping and name is same as your class name. What is the class name? Register servlet. What is the servlet name? Register servlet. What is the URL mapping? Register servlet. If you want, you can change it here. You can change the name of the servlet. You can also change the URL pattern. You can edit it and you can modify it. But I want to keep it same. Click on the next. What all you need? Hey, I don't need init method. If I want, I can override. I also don't want to override destroy. I can override all these methods if I want. But I don't need to do all this stuff. I don't need to do all this stuff. If I just override service method, that is good enough. Because your generic servlet is an abstract class. What is servlet is? Servlet is an interface. What is servlet? Servlet is an interface. And your generic servlet is an abstract class. I mean, somebody has defined like this. Public class generic servlet implements servlet, and they didn't override all the methods. Override not all the methods. So if you are not overriding all the methods, then generic servlet is called as what? The generic servlet is called as abstract class. Generic servlet is called as what? Abstract. So since you are extending generic servlet, click on the next and click on the next. Then you have a service method. Click on the fish. Yeah. Now here you have registered servlet, extending generic servlet, implementing the servlet interface. Now you have a service method. Now this service method is taking what parameters? Two parameters. Servlet request and servlet response. It's taking two parameters. Just give me a minute, guys. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you have two things here. The service method takes two parameters, servlet request and servlet response. Now, what is servlet request? Servlet request is an interface. What is servlet response? Servlet response is also an interface. They both are interfaces. Servlet request and servlet response are what? They both are interfaces. They both are interfaces. Now, interfaces given by whom? Given by Java. Given by, you can say Sun or you can say Oracle. They are available in which package? They are available in which package? Java X dot servlet dot Java X dot servlet dot servlet request. Here also. Given by whom? Given by Sun or Oracle. Java X dot servlet dot servlet response. So these are the interfaces given by Sun. Now, here I said, what is servlet? Again an interface given by us, where it is Java X dot servlet dot servlet. If I see most of the list as interfaces again. If you remember the JDBC, in JDBC also you have a lot of interfaces. Then who provided the implementations? Database vendors has provided the implementations. Here also I see interfaces. Who provides the implementations? Implementations for the above interfaces are provided by every web server vendor. Every web server vendor. So what is the web server I am using? Tomcat. What is the web server I am using? Tomcat. So Tomcat is a web server developed by Apache Software Foundation. Mostly these people, they all do open source work. So whatever developed by this Apache Software Foundation, it will be mostly open source. That is, it is free to use. So Tomcat is a web server developed by Apache Software Foundation. Developed by Apache Software Foundation. It's a web server developed by Apache Software Foundation. And these guys have provided the implementation. Then why did I bring up this discussion here? Because where is this service method residing, or where is this servlet residing? The developed servlet resides on server, that is inside a web container. Who creates object? Who creates object? Web container creates object. Web container creates object. Now, web container creates object, and before that, web container only loads the .class file. and your web container invokes init method. And who is invoking the service method? Web container only invokes the service method. So when your web container is invoking the service method, to invoke the service method, need two arguments. So who will provide those two arguments? As I said, these are interfaces, and these interfaces are given by Java, and the implementations are provided by the server vendors. So your web server vendors has provided the implementations of servlet request and servlet response while calling service method. Container provides objects of implementation class of servlet request and servlet response. So while calling, they have the key. I don't have the implementations of servlet request and servlet response. So I am not calling the service method because this servlet resides on the server. So whoever is making a call is container. So your container will provide the implementations of your servlet request and servlet response. Your container provides the implementations for servlet request and servlet response. You provide the implementations for servlet request and servlet response. And so while container calling the service method, it can pass arguments of implementations of the implementation class of servlet request and servlet response. Now what is the advantage of this request and response? We're going to see that. Request dot get parameter. Now this is very important. Understand. Now if you go back to your HTML, what is the name attribute of the text field? The name attribute of the text field is first name. Now when I say request dot get parameter, this is what I'm supposed to do. Request dot get parameter first name. Then I'm reading the value which is in the text field and assigning it to first name. Then comes next. Hey, here you can keep anything. You don't need to have it as a last name. You can also say LN. But it is not readable, so I'm just keeping it. Request dot get parameter. Last name. We got a first name, we got a last name. What are the other things we have? After accepting the first name, last name, oh, password, confirm password. Now here, I won't be reading confirm password. I won't be reading confirm password. Why I won't be reading confirm password? Because that is for the client side. On the client side, using JavaScript, I want to ensure that whatever the value entered in the password field is same as the confirm password. I don't need it on the server side, right? On the client side only I need it, and I do the validation on the client side, whether he entered the right values or not. So you got your first name, you got your last name, you got your password. What do you need next? Gender, date of birth. Request dot get parameter. Fine, you got a gender. Then comes what? So here there are a lot of there are three radio drop downs, right? One is for the month, other is for the day, other is for the year. So I do year, month, day, year. So it was dot get parameter got a day equals dot get parameter we got a month equals dot get parameter we got a year. So you got a month, date and the year, right? So I'm not sure whether we learned simple date format or not. There is something called simple date format. Then I pass dd yyyy. Then I say sdf dot pass. I'm converting into a date object. How do we do that? First we need to say day hyphen then you need to say month. Oh, I made a mistake here. I picked up the months as this one. No, January completely I have it. So I do this. Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And then I say month, again hyphen, then I say year. So it's converts that it converts a string into date. This seems to be fine. What else we are left with? Mobile number, alternate email address. I will not be reading the photo now. I will read the photo later. So your request dot get parameter will always return a string. Your request dot get parameter it always returns a string. I'm not reading the photograph now. I will do that later. I don't know why I have that. Email address. Name, yeah. Alternate email address. Then this is fine. I was able to capture the data from the database. I was able to capture the data from a database. Now I would like to display it. Print writer response dot get writer out.println name. Now I'm not printing it actually. I mean, I'm not storing into the database. You got your first name and the last name. Of course, we won't display password. So just I directly move on to the gender. Then you got your username. Where did I have it at? Oh, I didn't have it. Okay. Request dot get parameter username. Then what else? Date of birth. Then you can print your mobile number and alternate email. So here, I just made an email address. It's done. Now, when I click on the submit button, I'm asking the action attribute value is what? Registered servlet. And it's fine, but in a HTML you specify it as a registered servlet. But how it will connect to this servlet program? How it will connect to the servlet program? So I'll tell you. If you observe this servlet program carefully, do you see something here on top of the servlet program? Now, with the help of reflection API, I'll tell you how exactly the whole process works. When we make a request with the server, or when we submit request to server, right, what server do is, server delegates to container. Now container finds the appropriate project folder. Let me show you this. I have it here installed. Apache Tomcat web apps. Now in this web apps folder, you will have all the projects. So what is our project name? First servlet application. No? So it will be getting placed here. It will get placed into the web apps folder. It will get placed into this web apps folder. The container finds the appropriate project folder. Then what happens? It finds the appropriate project folder and opens the folder, and you need to know what will be the folder structure. The folder structure will be something like this. There will be a folder with the project name. Then within that you will have something called web.inf. Then you will have a web.xml. No, I'm sorry. You will have a web.inf and you will see all HTML and .jsp files here. Now within this web INF, you will have a classes folder, lib folder, web.xml folder. So this is the project structure of a web application. Means now here you see a lot of different things, right? But when it gets deployed onto the server, when you find it in the web apps folder, when you find it in the web apps folder, when you find it in the web apps folder, this is what the structure you see. I'll show you the structure. I'll create one. Let's say project name is what? You don't need to create it. It will automatically create the folder here when you deploy. First servlet application. Now within this, you can have, you will have a folder called web INF. Then you will see all HTML files and JSP files here. Now within this, you see another two more folders. Classes folder, lib folder. Now you will see one more file called web.xml here. Now within this classes folder, you see your .class files. Your servlet files will be here. I hope you understood the structure of the project. Now what happens, your web container finds the appropriate project folder, then it opens. Then after opening, I spoke about the reflection API. What is the significance of reflection API? You can dissect the Java program, right? So with the help of reflection API, you will be able to find out. I think we did that. So probably it will be wrong. Yes. Oh, this is something I was like. Here. See, there was a reflection API, right? So with the help of reflection API, what you are able to do, you are able to see how many methods it got, what is the class name, what is the access specifier of the class, is there an annotation present or not. If you look at this program, we are checking is annotation present or not. You have a method to check. So what happens is the web container with the help of reflection API, right, reads every .class file and look for annotation. Which annotation it looks for? It looks for the annotation called, what is the annotation here? @web servlet. It looks for the annotation @web servlet. Now that @web servlet annotation is taking some URL, registered servlet. This is exactly the same as the action value. You see this? So what happens? When you submit a request, it goes to the server, delegates it to the container. Container opens the appropriate project folder. Then it opens the classes folder. It starts reading every .class file. Then it starts searching for the @web servlet annotation. The moment it finds the annotation, it sees the value. If the value matches, then the respective servlet gets called. I hope you understood how this works. Now, let me run this. Run on server, because we have a server side program, so we need to say run on server. Then enter the details. then you need a mobile number, alternate email address. I don't want to upload a photo. You see here, name Arun Kankal, mail, username, date of birth there is constraint. We'll see that. You have a mobile number. You have an alternate email address. Let's see what is the problem with the mobile number. Oh, sorry, date. But before that, just give me a minute. I'm back. So let me see what is the problem. It says, okay, probably I should do it actually. dd hyphen mm hyphen. Okay, got it. Here, what is the format I specified? Right? But well, I'm passing three values, three characters, right? If you see here, what are you passing? Three characters. I think that was the problem. Now you can just go back, refresh, and you can submit it again. You have it. Now, if you want it in a different line, if you see they are all printing in the same line, right? So if you want it in a different lines, then you can do one thing. You can include HTML. But before that, you need to specify that your response is, it can be a text or it can be a HTML. So you are specifying that your response is of what type, text or HTML, because you are using HTML tags here. So I did discuss a lot about the web container. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about the plus files.
I'm sorry?
It's actually when you were telling about the, what was that? About how the web container locates the registered HTML.
Okay.
You mentioned, yeah, so it reads the .class file. So this .class file is actually the servlet
Yes.
class file.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you remember, on the day when I discussed annotation, on the day when I discussed annotations, I told you that some annotations are present till compile time, some are present till source time, some are present till run time. You go back here, look at this retention policy of the annotation. While creating the annotations, you specify the retention policy. Whether you want the retention policy to be only till compile time, or till the source code, or till the execution, that is till your JVM reads it. So this @web servlet, is an annotation which is available till your while during execution also. That is when your web container is using this for execution servlet, this annotation is available. So your reflection API reads every servlet.class file and it reads the annotation, and once it reads the annotations, it reads the corresponding value. If the value matches with the action value, then servlet is invoked. And this annotation is present till runtime. It needs to be present till runtime, otherwise how will I understand that this is the servlet I'm supposed to call? Now this is all about using annotations, right? This is servlet 3 actually. What we are using is servlet 3.0. Now in case if you want to use servlet 2.5, now I'll tell you what is that. If you here go back, okay, when you try to create a dynamic web project again, when you try to create a dynamic web project, do you see something called dynamic web module version here? And when you expand, you see the J2EE versions. Now till Java EE, there is J2EE 1.4, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. They are all supported by J2EE 1.4. Now after J2EE 1.4, there is nothing called J2EE 1.5. We call it as a Java 5. Or we call it as a Java EE 5. We call it as a Java EE 6. So from 3 so Java EE 5, Java EE 6, they represents web module version 3. But J2EE 1.4, they represents web module version 2.5. But you can use 5 and the 6 with 2.5 also. You can use 5 and the 6 with 2.5 also. So what I do is, I'll create quickly another project. Now you did it with 3.0. Dynamic web project. First underscore servlet underscore application underscore 2.5. Now your Tomcat 6 supports only 2.5. It won't support 3. But your 7, Tomcat 7 supports 2.5 as well as 3. Now let me choose 3 first. So when I choose 3, click the next. Next. You see here, your web.xml is not selected, right? Your web.xml is not selected. But I select it. But if you observe, again if you observe this, first underscore servlet underscore application underscore 3.0, I pick Tomcat 7 because I have Tomcat 7, but I pick web module version 2.5. Yeah, I'm not discussing 3.0. 3.0 I already discussed. Now I click on the next. Now you see checkbox is already selected because your 2.5 they depend on XML document. Now in the previous case also you have an XML document. But you have nothing in the XML. You don't have anything about the servlets here. Forget about that. I'll discuss later. Do you see something here about the servlets? You have nothing about the servlets in the web.xml of 3.0. But now look at, I'm doing 2.5. In 2.5 I'm creating a servlet. As usual, I give the servlet name as registered servlet. Then I pick, instead of HTTP servlet, I pick generic servlet. Click on the next. name and the URL pattern. Click on the next. You just need a service method. Click on the finish. Now do you see a annotation here? Now you don't see any annotation, right? Then how your program works? I'll tell you how it works. Now if you observe carefully, I open web.xml of the 2.5. I open web.xml of the 2.5. I open web.xml of the 2.5. Then I found that, you see here, so before annotations, as I said earlier, annotations were introduced from Java 5 onwards. Annotations were introduced from Java 5 onwards. But before Java 5, we don't have anything called annotations. We had no concept called annotations. So what we used to do is, in the web.xml, I used to do the mapping. You see servlet, description, you see the servlet name and the servlet class. Then the same servlet name, it also appears in servlet mapping, and then you see a URL pattern. Now what exactly happens in this case? In 2.5, in web module version, again here also the same, the web container only, but web container reads what? Web.xml and search for web container reads web.xml and it starts searching for what? It starts searching for URL pattern. Once found, it calls the respective servlet. So if it is a 2.5, you use this concept, the XML concept. So let me copy that HTML file. Show me that content. Let me refresh. Let me run this. I'm running 2.5. First name, last name, username, gender, mobile number, alternate email. So this is using your .xml concept. Yeah. How your container, I discussed how to read annotations. How do we read annotations? Using reflection API. So very soon we will discuss how to read XML. To read XML, we have lot of parsers, DOM parser, Trax parser. There are many. These are the two prominent. We will discuss that later. It's a very simple thing actually. You just need to use the API to get the things done. Yeah. So any questions on what I covered so far? I'm not sure who raised the hand. Oh, if you want to have scene, as I told you, right? Okay. When we need to use servlets. So as I said earlier, you were with the help of JavaScript, I cannot write a program which will insert the data into the database. I mean, you do registration for Facebook. You do registration for Facebook, or you do registration for any Gmail account or whatever, any online registration. When you click on this sign up button, it's not the JavaScript which will insert the data into the database. There should be some server side program which will run on the server. A normal Java program do not get executed on a server. I mean, if I am not extending servlet, since I am extending servlet, generic servlet and implementing, this program will get executed on the server. But if I write a normal Java program, that doesn't get executed on a server, right? So I mean, when I said doesn't get executed on the server, in the sense, we need somebody to invoke it. But servlets is the only web component which is invoked by your web container. See, if I write a DAO program on the server side, what I need to do? For this DAO program, I need to create object. Then I need to call. If you remember what you did in your normal Java programming, I'll show that. You have a main method, right? In your normal Java programming, if you look at your JDBC, what did you do here? The main method was creating the DAO objects. And then it is calling the method, right? So main method is the entry point to start the program, right? When it comes to Java Standard Edition, who is the entry point for program execution? Your main program. But now the programs are not on the client, the programs are on the server. So there should be some entry point. Who will give the entry point? Servlet is the one which gives the entry point. When you make a request, it goes to the servlet. So your servlet is acting like your main method there. That is the point where your program execution starts. Your server side program gets started. But why do we need servlet? Because if I write a main method, that main method only executes on my computer. If I write a main method, that main method executes on my computer. But if I want it to get executed, it gets executed on my computer. But if I want it to be accessible globally, so where should I put it? I should put it onto a server, right? I should put the program onto a server. So on the server, your main method doesn't work. So you need something else. Something else is nothing but servlet. So servlet is a server-side Java program which is stored on the server and gets executed on the server. Only the response is given back to the client. So it acts like the same thing what your main method does for your desktop applications. So the main method what it does for desktop applications, same thing the servlet does it for the web applications. And since it is stored onto a server, the servlet can be accessed globally. Is it clear, Pradeep, or any question more? Okay. Yeah, Ishita.
Yeah, Arun, I still had a question about that request and finding the class. So when the client sends a request, it goes to the web container which searches for the appropriate servlet class.
Normally, what you do is, this is what you do, right? Whenever you open your browser, you say what? w3schools.com, right? Now, what is this W3 School? Now, in this w3schools.com, you wanna open what? jquery.html, right? Suppose you want to learn HTML from w3schools.com. This is what the address you need to type in the address bar, right? Now, what is this w3schools.com specifying? It is specifying the address where your web application is hosted. Okay, so I develop a web application. Now, what I need to do? I need to buy a domain. Then I need to host it. When I host it, then people across the globe, how do they access? For every domain, there will be an IP address. But will I be sharing the IP address to the customers? I say, hey, on this so and so, you have a web page called jquery.html. Why don't you access? No, I won't be doing this. So this is a name given to an address, right? So there are a lot of, we have something called GoDaddy. They also host web servers. I mean, they have a lot of servers and we host our applications with them. So what I do is, these people are the people, GoDaddy is an organization which provides servers and space on the servers. What I do is, I go and purchase the memory from them. After purchasing the memory from them, I host my application onto the memory which I got it from the GoDaddy. Now I tell across the globe that, hey, this is what my website, and on this website you can have the tutorial called jquery.html. Now what happens, in the address bar you type w3schools.com. So when you say w3school.com, that is giving me the address of the project folder, right? Then in that you have a first.html. Right? Now I call the first.html. Where is the HTML? Inside a project folder. Now the HTML gets opened. Now after the HTML gets opened, I enter the data, click on the submit button. The action value is what? Registered servlet, right?
Registered. Right.
So now the request goes like this. When you click on the submit button, the request converts like this. Now I go to these people who providing the memory. Then I start looking for the, not GoDaddy, yeah, I'm sorry. What was that earlier?
Web container.
W3 Schools. Or whatever the website. www.xyz.com/registered server. Now this xyz.com is registered with whom? GoDaddy. Then I start looking at the GoDaddy servers. Then I find this address. I found a folder with XYZ. Then in that, I start searching for registered servlet. But do I have a registered servlet here? No, right? So it's not a HTML. Since it's not HTML, it's not a JSP. I go back and look at the WebINF classes folder. I open the classes folder and I start reading all the servlets. I stop the moment I found a servlet with a URL pattern. So there are two ways. Either you can use reflection technology, you can use reflections and annotations if you are using web module version 3, or you can use XML, and XML document is read by your container with the help of DOM parser or SARS parser, and it will search for the URL value. The moment it finds the URL value, it calls the respective servlet.
Okay.
Is it clear to you?
Yeah, so basically the GoDaddy memories that we have bought will contain only class files, not the actual servlet code.
The GoDaddy will have a project folder, our complete application.
Okay.
Your complete application will be hosted. Now that application consists of what all the files? This is the directory structure. So you can have HTML files also there.
Yeah, but the actual Java servlet files won't be readable. They will be in the class form.
Yeah. So you cannot access them directly.
Yeah, that was my actual question. Yeah, but thank you.
Right.
Thank
So it goes to the HTML. If it is a HTML, it directly call the HTML. If it is some URL pattern, then it will, if it is unable to locate here something, then it will go to the classes folder. Then it will read those dot class files of the servlets. And if you are using module version 2.5, then it reads the XML document. If you are using 3, it can depend on reflections and annotation. Now, what next? I would like to do one more activity, which is very simple. It takes 10 minutes of time. I was using generic servlet. Instead, I'll be using the HTTP servlet now. First underscore servlet underscore application underscore Tomcat 7 version 3. Next. So what happened? Oh, I'm creating a project, right? Okay. It's optional. If you are using 3, it is optional to have web.xml. Then within this, I just copy that HTML document again. I have the HTML. Then I'll create a servlet. But this time I won't be changing the parent. I'll keep it as HTTP servlet. Then this time I have so many methods to override. But I can pick either doGet or doPost. For time being, I'm choosing doGet. You have a lot of methods. The most prominent are doGet and doPost. I'm picking doGet. Then whatever the logic I have in the previous program, I can just get it as it is. It's done. So let me refresh. First.html, run on server, next and the finish. I think it is unable to locate this because I copied and pasted. So same job is done with the help of HTTP servlet. Now I'll try to give you some assignments. You need to understand the differences between the HTTP servlet and generic servlet. You can read this information from here. Okay, this guy has very clearly given the differences between the generic servlet and HTTP servlet. So you can go through it. And here there are a lot of other methods. The HTTP servlet got a lot of methods. DoGet, DoPost. Then you can also find out why do we need different methods. I'll list down here what all the things you need to look at. Now first thing you need to learn is what is HTTP. I'll give you the references. What is HTTP and differences between HTTP servlet and generic servlet. And why do we need do get, do post? A lot of things actually. Do put. Why do we need these many methods? What is the significance of each method? And if you observe registered servlet here, you are not calling do get service method, you are calling do get method. And it is taking HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. Now what they are? What differences between servlet request and HTTP servlet request. Differences between servlet response and HTTP servlet response. Right. You can also read about the servlet life cycle. Try to read these answers to this, get the answers to these questions, and they are all available here, java-tpoint.com. Yeah. So tomorrow we will be discussing. So this is what I asked you to look at. Tomorrow I'll be focusing on init params, context params, request dispatcher, session management. Then if time permits, I can also discuss file upload. How do we upload a file? Then I don't think I can do this tomorrow. And I can show JDBC. How to use JDBC. Okay. You guys have any questions? Alright. If no questions, I would like to stop here. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks everybody. I hope you guys are able to access video recordings, right?
Hi Arun, this is only for the training purpose. You are showing the HTML and the servlet without the database, and mostly we will with the database only the programs are the application will be there, right?
No. You need a servlet. Without servlet, you cannot do anything else. Because
no, I'm asking the connecting the servlet and the HTML without the database, is only for the training purpose. You are showing this the HTML and the servlet connection without the database, or nowadays they are using that without database, the HTML and servlet.
No. Servlet. The purpose of servlet and JDBC is completely different. You need a server-side program, and we are discussing server-side program now. Then after that, we will discuss how do I integrate server-side program with JDBC.
Okay. No, what I'm asking is the connection between the HTML and the servlet.
There will be the connection between actually these are the programs will be there, right? See, everything is not related to the database, no.
Okay.
If you look at website,
yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
It's not only purpose of telling. See, whatever the examples I'm trying to discuss, they are completely related to the currently how the people work. I'm not discussing something which is completely deprecated. So what is according to the industry standards. So I started with HTML and servlet so that I will be completing the presentation layer and control layer.
Yeah. Just I want to know where this one is particularly used, the HTML to servlet, this type of connection. Which application they are using particularly?
See, every web application involves HTML. Without HTML, there is no web application. Okay. But of course, servlets are no longer used. People are not using servlets now. The reason is we have frameworks. I think you might have heard about the frameworks called Struts and Spring. So these frameworks, you don't need to use servlets. But actually, in the background, these frameworks use what? Servlets only.
Okay.
The underlying technology for the Struts and the Spring is servlets. Without the proper knowledge of the servlet, it is very difficult to learn frameworks.
Okay.
Of course, you can develop programs using Struts and Spring. You don't need to learn servlets, but you don't understand what happens in the background. When you go for interviews, most of the questions will be based on how exactly the request is interpreted on the back end. I mean, on the server side.
Okay.
People say yes, Spring does everything for you, but how exactly happens? So Spring in the background, the use of servlets. Take any web framework which is existing or which is going to come in the future.
Okay.
They're going to involve servlets. You may not be using the servlets physically. I mean, you may not be using the servlets, but your framework in the background, the use of what? Servlet technologies only.
Oh, okay. And can you please send me some applications where we can see the applications with the servlet and HTML, the actual applications? Can you please send that some applications also?
I can share the code samples which I did for the earlier batches, or every day. I think you will be seeing one case study. I will be building it in the entire project. I mean, in the complete training. First, I will be building a case study with servlets. Then I will be building the case study with JSP. In the same case study, I will be building with the servlet JDBC. Then the same case study, I will be building with the Spring JDBC, Hibernate, Spring Hibernate. So you will be seeing that, because I cannot share the code which I do it in my company projects. That is not something allowed. So what I can do is every day I can share the code samples which I did it for the current batch, or I can also share the code samples which I did for the earlier batch. But I'll be sharing the code samples. Alright?
Yeah, my audio got disconnected, Arun. Yeah, I was having this problem couple of days. Yeah, again my audio got disconnected. Okay. I couldn't able what you said.
Okay. Did Shiva reach you back? So it's not a disconnection audio, I don't think, because it got muted. Now I unmuted.
No. Okay. No. Your audio completely got this. I can see the pop-up message from the webinar. It says my audio got got disconnected, and it's attempting to reconnect it like that.
I spoke to Shiva. He was expected to call you yesterday, but I think he told I'll remind him today.
Okay, Arun. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Can you please send the real-time applications with sample codes or something?
I was trying to say the same thing. You know, it is very difficult to share the real-world code samples because that's the company policy. But I can give you some case studies where I have built the case studies which are more, close to the real-world samples.
Okay.
So you will be seeing this here, you have a registration and you also have a file upload. So it is more like, if you see when you try to register yourself on a job portal, that is something a real world scenario, right? Registering yourself on a job portal. So this is what I was trying to do actually here. Right?
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. Without the database, the registration or something, we cannot do that, right?
Yeah, we cannot do it. But because I cannot do all the stuff at one go, right? I was trying to do step by step. I finished the presentation layer, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all for presentation. The last 3 days I devoted for presentation. Today I am devoting for controller. Tomorrow also I will be devoting it for controller. Then day after tomorrow, I'll be focusing on the JDBC.
Okay, yeah. Just I want to make sure because for me also it's a long gap, so I want to know what's exactly with the servlet and the HTML. Yeah.
No. It will be completely full training will be there. It's not like I'll just quickly run through. There will be a case study which will be studying for every concept. We'll be solving for every concept.
Okay, Arun. Thank you.
Alright guys, okay. If no questions, we'll stop here. We'll catch you in the next session. Thank you.